Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. So what's on tap for today? Well, where I've got our continuing series of the Daily Wire debates between Ana Kasparian and Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire. And Ana, she's with the Young Turks. It's part 2 of the debates, folks, and we're going to get to that in the next few seconds. But before we do so, we just wanted you to go ahead and hit that subscription bell, smash that notification bell as well, like, share, and follow us. Let us know what you think after you watch this video. Put your comments down below. Let's get to the debate between Ana and Ben, part 2.
What's really interesting about that is that it seems like there are two values that you're centering in on, and they're working in tandem, which are really good. One is that you're actually pursuing things that you think are true. You're trying to get to the truth, which means listening to other perspectives, just from a sort of classically liberal position. And then on the other hand, you're also suggesting that this builds social fabric. And so the point that I've made is that the future of the country, in terms of sort of a national polity, because what we're seeing right now is a giant sword, right? We're seeing people like me move to Florida, away from California. You're still in California. We'll talk about that in a second. You're seeing people in New York get more New York, and people in California get more California, and Florida get more Florida. It's getting redder. And so the social fabric at the national level seems to be fraying a lot. And so one of the things that I've said is that the future of the country is going to rely on people who disagree with me, but agree that we should be having the conversation.
Right.
Not siding with people who they may agree with in terms of the political end goal, but foreclose the conversation. Because that way, the social fabric phrase, you get to where you want to go, maybe, but you lose half the country in the process.
You might lose half the country in the short term, right? But I think media is incredibly powerful. And look, I think it's also important to differentiate between what you and I are doing and what I see happening on other, let's say, right-wing shows, right? I see a lot of right-wing hosts bring on individuals who purport to be on the left, and then all they do is come on the show and trash the left while simultaneously agree with whatever the right-wing host is saying, right? It's a form of propaganda that I think is persuading some amount of leftists to immediately panic if they see someone on the left go on a right-wing show. So I'm sure that they'll see this conversation, they'll automatically assume, oh, Anna's just there to...
welcome to the Republican Party, Anna.
Right, to reinforce what Ben is saying. But you and I have serious differences. We've debated economic issues. Everyone can go back and watch that debate that we had at the Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce. But at the same time, I think there is a...
Time for a plug here for the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. If you want to, check out our videos, because we did do reaction videos to the debate that Ana had with Ben at the Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce. So just wanted to drop that in.
A difference between the endlessly, I don't want to say sometimes violent, yes. Like, we just need to bring the temperature down for a second and acknowledge that the majority of the country isn't on the extreme right or the extreme left. The conversation is dominated on social media, especially by the extreme right and the extreme left. We need to bring the temperature down and actually represent what the majority of Americans are concerned about. Majority of Americans want the same thing. They want healthy, happy families. They want financial stability. How do we get there? And we're never going to answer that question if all we do is pretend like the extreme ends of the spectrum are representative of this country and that we should all hate each other and be super divided.
So in a second, I want to talk to you about the incentive structure for avoiding exactly kind of the thing that we're doing right now. First, it's time to talk about Daily Wire's most trusted privacy partner and the premier sponsor. The incentive structures in not having conversations like this. One of the things that I'm seeing, it's what we would call in the industry nutpicking. You try to find people on the other side who say the wildest possible things, or you take them out of context so they sound like they're saying the wildest possible things, and then you critique that in order to drive up ire. And I think all of us do this. I mean, we're all in the media, which means you very often are playing a 20, 30-second clip of somebody. It's not a long-form conversation like this one, because they're just different formats, and we all get this. I think the audience also needs to understand that that's a thing that happens. What's more dangerous is when that, I think, carries over into the political sphere, where you have people in each political party who are now attempting to draw and actually incentivize the other party to get more extreme. The idea being, what if we make the other party so extreme that they are unpalatable to the majority of the American people? They elect us, we win, we get to do what we want. Now, that in the short term actually may get them some wins, right? I think this is one of the things that happened in the 2022 election, particularly in the Senate. You saw some Democrats who are actually supporting the most kind of out-of-the-box, crazy Republican candidates like Don Baldock in New Hampshire in the primaries in order to elevate him, thinking, okay, well, that means he's going to lose, which is exactly what happened. It's actually quite smart strategy in the short term, but what it also ends up doing is it ends up fringing out the moderates, meaning like everybody who is not on the fringe is now not represented in the election. And what you've ended up doing is incentivizing the kind of most angry part of one party, and in your own party, making them the most angry that they could possibly be about the other party, as opposed to, what if we all just sort of pick our best candidates and then let them go at it in the ring?
I mean, I wish that was the actual method and strategy, but you would actually have to have a campaign strategy that offers the voters something to vote on instead of something to vote against. And I think that this has actually been an incredibly dangerous strategy for the Democratic Party, because they might feel super confident that their candidates can beat someone who's on the extreme right, but there have been instances where that wasn't the case. I mean, certainly in 2016, the Democratic National Committee was really propping up Donald Trump under the assumption that there's no way Hillary Clinton would lose to Donald Trump. Well, here we are. I mean, Donald Trump won, clearly. So there's that part of it. I also think when you consider the campaign donations that ordinary people give to the Democratic Party, they were not under the assumption that their hard-earned money was going to go toward far-right candidates in order to, give these Democratic candidates a leg up in their mind. I mean, again, it's very, very risky to do that. I don't think it's a smart strategy at all. For the Democrats, even in the short term, again, it's risky, okay? Sometimes they get it wrong. And if you don't give people something to vote for, meaning if you don't have policy proposals, actual solutions that are appealing to voters, are they going to show up just to vote against the person you've been fear-mongering about? I don't think it's smart at all. Aside from that, I think what you're saying is also correct in that the conversation increasingly becomes dominated by lunatics. And I don't think that's representative of most Americans. And there's also this problem of lumping in everyone together in like this neat little box of ideology, right? So I think in the minds of a lot of people on the left, you are the exact same person as Tucker Carlson, right? And I think you're different. I think you're different from Matt Walsh. I think you're different from Candace Owens. You guys are all on the same network. I commend you for having differences of opinion on the same network. And I'm sure it can be uncomfortable at times, but there are nuances and differences. And I think it's important for people to be cognizant of that, because I don't want to be lumped in with someone on the far left, right? I have significantly different opinions from them on certain matters. And I think it's important to know what those differences are and not let, again, the extreme ends of the spectrum represent the entire country.
So,
the thing here is that I don't care what's going to happen. I don't think that's going to change, except for maybe a few people that are going to be able to sort of, discern that for just the basic niceties of being in agreement. Like both Ben and Ana are over here, but as I said before, when everybody pulls away from this different type of setting and goes back to their political corners in the political ring, so to speak, it's probably going to be, business as usual. People are going to identify Ben Shapiro as obviously on the right wing. And as Ana just said, with Matt Walsh and with, Candace Owens and with Tucker Carlson and with, Crowder and, with a whole host of others. And of course, we're going to lump, a lot of people on the right are going to lump, Ana Kasparian, okay, with what? Cenk Uygur and I'm just trying to think, Van Jones and Rachel Maddow and, all the other people on the left, in terms of that. So that's just going to happen. Now, yes, you can have nuances. Not everybody on the right agrees with everybody on the right in terms of policy or how to get there. And not everybody on the left, obviously, agrees with everybody on the left and how to get to certain positions on various policies. And then as Ana really pointed out as well, that you've got extremes on both the right and the left. And then there's probably people, okay, that are, a little bit more towards the center. So, but we lump everybody in, obviously, together on this, and that's just going to continue. I really just don't see how that's going to stop, lumping people and say, oh, you know what, you're really far right, and I understand those people, and you're a little bit more center right, and then you're a little bit more, closer to the center, and then you're in the center, you're the, you're the independents, and then we do the same thing on the left and go out. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Two things that you mentioned there is the idea that you have to run on something, not run against something. And obviously negative campaigning is the most effective form of campaigning, despite all of the happy talk about how when you campaign for things, people rally behind you. People who are policy wonks tend to do very poorly in elections. People who are attack dogs tend to do very well in elections because that lizard part of our brain that senses threat is really activated by a perception of threat on the other side. Oh,
well, actually, can I interrupt you on that?
Sure.
Because I agree and disagree. So let's go back to 2016. Because with 2016 several years away, we can now really analyze it for what it was. Donald Trump's campaigning certainly had a significant negative component to it. Negative campaigning was part of what he did. But he also offered, or at least paid lip service to, something that Americans were concerned about, which was bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States, really taking care of workers in our country, maybe reconsidering some of the foreign aid that the federal government shells out. That appealed to his base, so much so that even today they're so loyal to him regardless of what he does. So
I have to say something here. It not only appealed to his base, but it also appealed to those Reagan Democrats who in over 200 counties in the United States of America who actually voted twice for Obama, flipped. 200 counties. That's why he was able to break through that blue wall. So for Ana to basically be saying that that appealed, workers first, bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States, foreign aid to other countries, that's not a good winning proposition. Let's spend, instead of that, why are we spending foreign aid to other countries? Why don't we spend that money on our own people, on our own country? All those things resonated, and it resonated with everybody. And if you were someone that didn't resonate with that, then you're in the completely wrong. You want this country, you're thinking this country is going a completely other direction. All right? So Ana here has to be basically, my opinion, and I think it's absolutely the correct opinion, and the facts bear it out, the counties bear it out. There's 200 counties, twice voted for Obama in 08 and 012, these Reagan Democrats, and then they went for President Trump.
So he actually did give people something to vote for, whereas all we got from the Democratic Party during that election was, ooh, Donald Trump's dangerous. Isn't he so dangerous? Oh my God, don't vote for him because if you do, you'd be racist, this, that. It was just nonstop scolding. If that is what your strategy is, I don't think that it's a winning strategy, sometimes in the short term, but certainly not in the long term.
So that's
Now, I just have to stop again here too, because that's all the TYT people were doing. That's all they were doing on the left. Ana, you were part of that. In fact, you on election night basically chastised women and said they were absolutely moronic, stupid, and retarded for voting for Donald Trump. Don't give me this crap. Maybe you've had time for reflection and thought and those kind of things or whatever. And I think you have mentioned on some other shows that was wrong, that you shouldn't have made those comments. So, you know what? Okay. That's understandable. You, in the heat of the moment, hey, we all say things, do things. I'm sure I've done those things or whatever. Can't remember. Anyways, let's continue.
Does raise the question as to what you think the Democratic Party should run on. Right. So the Democratic Party has radically shifted its appeal over the course of the last 15 to 20 years. If you go back to 2004, it was John Edwards running on sort of the Two Americas platform, which sounds a lot like sort of the language that Bernie Sanders uses when he talks about the United States, right? A lot of what he talks about is this sort of class divisions in the United States. It's very much focused on economic redistributionism, focusing on the blue-collar worker. This is obviously the audience that he's attempting to drive out to the polls. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party, if you look at it demographically, seems to have become the party largely of upscale white liberals who went to college. And low-income minorities. And that's a very fragile coalition, because the truth is that I'm not sure that those people have tons and tons in common. White upscale liberals tend to be very concerned with questions of equity far more than people who are actually low-income minorities, like by polling data. The sort of woke concerns that everybody on the right likes to pick on, that is white upper-crust liberals who are pushing that. It's not minorities who are pushing that sort of stuff. I remember having this conversation with Van Jones, and he was totally agreeing with me. He's like, what are all these white upper-crust liberals doing talking about this sort of stuff? They should be talking about sort of the bread and butter issues. And so you have the white upper-crust liberals pushing that, plus a solid dose of kind of very social leftist policy ranging from abortion to transgenderism to same-sex marriage and those sorts of policies that are not the chief concern of low-income minorities. And it seems like the way that they're getting low-income minorities to sort of resonate to the message is with the threat assessment of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is racist, they don't like you, they hate you, Donald Trump's evil, and all the rest of that. It seems like they dodged the bullet in 2022, but that's a very fragile coalition.
Well, I see this as a problem, honestly, on both sides, campaigning on both sides. I think that increasingly you have both parties completely captured by campaign donations from wealthy donors, corporate donations. I think that's been a problem. That has led to pro-corporate policy by both Democrats and, Republicans have always been in that camp. But now Democrats have been so captured with that money. And then the other thing is, Ben, it's a huge problem that we have members of Congress invested in individual stocks that they are legislating about or legislating on. Because first of all, that there's an insider trading issue there, number one, conflict of interest. And also, they're gonna want their stock portfolios to perform well. So are they gonna pass the right legislation to protect the consumer, to protect the worker, to protect the average American, when they are literally invested in ensuring that those companies do real well, because they profit off of that as well. So that is a huge problem. And so what you have now is both sides, in my opinion, campaigning on a bunch of BS, okay? Not actually focusing on what would improve this country for Americans, what would improve this country for the voters. It's just nonstop distractions. Look, this is what we're seeing right now with the investigations in the House, right? The first thing Republicans said was, we're gonna do investigations into Hunter Biden, we're gonna investigate this. Fine, do the investigations, I don't really care, right? I'm not some loyalist to the Bidens at all, by any means. But the culture war stuff, the investigations, it's really important for Americans to understand, none of this stuff at the end of the day is gonna improve your life, okay? So all the distractions, we need to be privy to the fact that they're distractions, and we need to get back to actually hashing out what policies need to pass in order to make sure that Americans are thriving.
So this does raise the question.
Okay, just want to end it there, basically. Several things. Let's go back to what Ben was talking about, that what's happening in terms of where the elitists in the Democratic Party have gone to. The white elitists, basically, the liberals, what they call social justice warriors, right? The ones that basically want a virtue signal that, as long as you feel about something and you basically, wrap your hands around, them or it or that entity, whatever that is, and you basically, empathize with them. You're going to get their vote, even though you could care less about it, but you think that it's absolutely the right way to capture that group of people. This whole thing with intersectionality that occurs in the Democratic Party, the slicing and dicing of the people for, basically in terms of, special interest groups, right? Black, brown, Hispanic, Latino, gay, lesbian, transgender, minorities, women, you name it, right? You lump those in and you sort of build a coalition around that. They thought they could do that, leave everybody else alone. Predominantly that only leaves alone, the white people or, Caucasians or whatever, and build that thing. They thought they could do it in 2016. They were wrong. Now, going to Anna's point, I totally agree with what Anna was talking about in terms of where she's saying that the politicians that we elect on both sides, many of them, once they get our money, once they get our vote, they go to Washington, D.C., they're just sort of, captured, taken over, obviously by re-election. By re-election means they've got to get, corporate money. They've got to get money to, win again, incumbency. and then just breeds incumbency, obviously. And then these people, like she talked about, where, in terms of you're voting on policies, voting on laws that you're investing in those companies that may have a direct, gain from being in part of that policy, or perhaps, insider trading. You're working on policy. You're working on laws that are going to be profitable or going to make certain companies profitable and other companies not. And you're investing in that. Insider trading, we don't have access to that. So I totally agree with Ana on that, in terms of that needs to completely stop. Absolutely, it has to. So all these things factored in. I think, again, they got their points across in terms of what they're trying to do. They basically said that there were times when they had to rethink some of their positions and maybe, tweak them a little bit. But I think we're really getting an essence here, Ben, through his questioning of, Ana, in terms of, where she stands on some of these and where there might be some areas of agreement for us, and obviously where those areas of disagreement are. And, maybe we can try to, work on the agreement where we agree on, and where we disagree on, we agree to disagree. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking time to watch. This was part 2 of our series of the Daily Wire debates between Ana Kasparian and Ben Shapiro, a reaction video to it, part 2. Thanks for watching. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show, and I've been your guest host for today. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Put your comments down below. We really would like to know what you thought. And I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.